What is up, everyone? Welcome into the Fight HQ podcast as we're here to get you ready for Noche UFC, Noche. I've seen it said both ways by the UFC, but we're here to break this one down for you. Of course, to my right is the fighter, Pete Rogers Jr. I am Jason Floyd. Appreciate everyone tuning in for this episode of the Fight HQ podcast. If you haven't been watching us live here on YouTube, here on Thursday afternoon, just after 1 o'clock East time, or if you're checking us out on demand, whether it's on YouTube or on the podcasting platforms, we appreciate you tuning in. Of course, we're going to break down this fight card. We'll go fight by fight. Then at the end of the show, we'll give our fight picks, and then we'll answer any listener questions. Of course, I already got some questions in over on Discord. Of course, that is one way to put your questions in. You can also submit a question here right on YouTube. If you want to throw super chat, we always appreciate that as well. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you know when we're live here on the channel. Of course, always appreciate those thumbs up or subscribe, rate, review over on the podcasting platforms. People coming here following UFC 293 is, I had been kind of struggling on DFS the past couple weeks and had a nice bounce back week last week.
Yeah, welcome to the club, man. It's been a little rough patch as far as just like being one fight off or just not having the one fighter that's necessary to really, bring yourself to the top. And that's all sports for me. But I'm excited to hopefully put that behind us. But I'll tell you what, I was hoping to like the underdog selection a lot more than what I am. And you and I were talking about this before going live. Of this is going to be really hard because I don't like any underdogs. So I can make a case to increasing exposure to several of them. But like as far as straight up picking an underdog this week, I'm not there. I have concerns, within a lot of matchups. But I can't wait to bounce some ideas off your head and see where you're thinking as well.
Of course, I already see the guys over there in the chat, Andrew, Anthony, and Scott. Appreciate y'all chiming in there in the YouTube chat. Yeah, I'll tell you a little story Scott mentioned about, of course, was up there in Minneapolis. You've been in this nightclub and bar business for a long time, just like I have as well. So we found a little, basically like a bar arcade on Saturday night where we were watching the football games. And so we're leaving. It's like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, head back to the hotel, call it a night, waiting for the Uber. And I see the security with the metal wands wanting people down. I look at my buddy Chris and go, yeah, I think it's a good time to get out of this place.
Yeah.
That's usually not a good sign if we're wanding people down to get into a bar arcade.
Yeah, for a bar, yeah, that's true. Bar arcades are great. I really enjoy that.
Man, that is like anytime you got a road trip. I always whatever city we're going to, this past week it was Minneapolis. A couple weeks we'll be in New Orleans. That's not really a bar arcade town, but yeah, bar arcades. I love me a good bar arcade.
Didn't you hit me up and ask me if there was any in like the New England area one time, or is that somebody else and I gave you one in Rhode Island?
You know what? It was probably when the last time we played the Patriots, which had been year 2 of Brady, and because we were staying in Providence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we weren't staying near Foxborough.
Outside of Providence, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were not that far. Like we were literally very near the airport. And yeah, I can't remember if we actually went to one or not, but yeah, man, I love it. And I'll say this right now, for it to be a good bar arcade, there's 2 games. There has to be at least these 2 games for it to be a good bar arcade.
Let's hear it.
NBA Jam.
Okay.
NFL Blitz.
I'm with you.
If you don't got those games, you're not a good bar arcade.
Yeah. I love the old X-Men game. I love the old Ninja Turtles game.
Oh yeah.
Those are kind of right up my alley. And if, like the X-Men playing as Nightcrawler, like that's my guy. So
yeah, we got a couple of good barcades here in Tampa Bay area, but I know everyone is here to listen to us talk a little mixed martial arts action. By the way, Sean Strickland, if you didn't have him in your lineup last week, going out there and overall, I mean, last week it was here's what I know I'm having a good DFS week. I typically suck in the captain contest. I will flat, and I had the right 6 fighters, just didn't have the right captain. I had Manel Kopp as my captain, needed Tyson Pedro to be optimal. So, but yeah, it was a good week for me. And I was over there on the DraftKings app last night, and just right before the show, I'm like, can we get some of my favorite multiplier contests in there, DraftKings? Come on, man, give me I love the $10 one, I love the $50 one. Right now, just seeing those triple up contests, and that's, I mean, and I will say this: I play more cash type games than I do GPPs.
Yeah, and I do the opposite, and maybe I should play more cash. But I will tell you that last week I mentioned how I liked Strickland a lot more than what the odds suggested, and I should have listened to myself and got to more Strickland. I mean, I don't think too many people expected that, other than his training partners who have seen him do so much. I mean, I remember Brennan talking about training with Strickland and saying how difficult it was and how he struggled with him, in the MMA sparring or just kickboxing sparring. So I mean, always knew the skills were there, but I think I don't know, it was weird. He didn't give Izzy any chances and didn't even have to wrestle. It was just constant pressure, and the left head kick seemed to be Izzy's bailout, and that's kind of what he was trying to set up the entire time. And Strickland was wise to it because of Coach Eric Nixick and all the preparation there. But hell of a card. I don't even think Strickland was a part of the optimal lineup. I don't believe, even though I thought that he should have been. I do believe that there were 6 other higher scorers that ended up being in the contest.
Yeah, I played all cash lineups last week. I really didn't play any GPPs outside of the captain contest. So, unfortunately, the one contest I did not cash in was the Fight HQ contest. Of course, that one, because that was the one I had my cash core lineup, and Strickland was a core in that one. Didn't have him in the Fight HQ contest, but the Fight HQ contest for this week is up. It's in the show notes, so be sure to get in that contest.
I've yet to cash in our own damn contest.
You almost cashed, like, what was it, like 2 weeks? Weren't you like 4th or 5th?
Yeah, I've almost cashed like 4 different times. I'm like 4th place, 5th place. But it goes to show we got a sharp audience. And I used to be a single bullet guy, and clearly I'm not that anymore. I'm multi-entry type of guy. So
I think what I got to do is I got to go back on all this year at some point and maybe track who's done the best in the Fight HQ contest over there. But, of course, we always appreciate everyone tuning in. Of course, got our Discord channel, totally free to join. Always a great conversation in there. It could be on a Tuesday night. Myself or Pete might hop in there to let you know what we like in terms of on the betting side or the prize pick side. Of course, I will give my prize picks plays throughout the show, as there are some things I do like over at prize picks. I know, as I was telling Pete what I liked, I know there was some that he was kind of like, you sure about that? You sure about that?
Yeah. I shouldn't doubt the prize picks God. So I will tell you that if I do make my way to Rhode Island, I will be playing Jason's prize picks. And it's
always
something that I can't do in my state, but he's always on fire with his prize picks.
Yeah, and the big thing with prize picks is, if you can find those free squares in other sports and then tie them into your MMA plays. I mean, I know they've been doing some stuff with some NFL, whatnot. If you can find that over there, like I always say on prize picks, to me, it's about playing 2 and 3 player cards. That to me is how you really can be very effective, even though I do understand, chasing those 5 and 6 player cards. I totally get it. But let's move into Noche UFC, talking a little game theory before we get into breaking these ones down. And, Pete, when the salaries came out, I want to say it was Monday night when the salaries came out on this. And I mean, the thing that just jumped off the screen to me was the salaries in the main event. And I don't care whether you're playing GPP, you're playing or a cash game. I don't know how you avoid the main event this week. I mean, you're talking about Shevchenko at 8,500, Grasso at 7,700. Even what was it? Shevchenko, what was it, 81 or 91 points she got in the first matchup because she had, she dominated the second and third round with her grappling. Grasso won the first round in the first meeting, and then, of course, in the fourth round, she ultimately gets the submission when, she went for the spinning attack, and she was able to get on the back of Shevchenko. That one stuck out to me. The salaries on the co-main event also stuck out to me of 7,900 and 8,300. And then there's 9,000 options I look at and say, if they go out there with the proper game plan, Loopy Godinez, and you go out there and you go to take down City, Loopy Godinez, even at 9,400, could just smash this slate.
Yeah, 100%. I would agree with you that the main event's pretty difficult to get away from. Favorable price tags on both of them. 85 for Valentina, 77 for Alexa Grasso. Unless we have some crazy upsets and crazy finishes, I do think that the main event is going to be optimal, just given the way that 5 rounds, how I expect the takedowns to come. Excited to see the rematch. Excited to see if Alexa Grasso can do it again. Co-main event, really intriguing, right? Like, I feel like the community is going to be split on who's going to win. Obviously I'm siding with my boy Jack Della Maddalena. Feel like a couple people, including Jason, might be on the opposite end of that. We'll get into that, but if you can fade one of these fights, not the main event, but like one of these mid-range fights that everybody's going to flock to because of the dogs just being super inconsistent and you're not feeling confident with any of the underdogs, I do think it could set yourself up for success. You might be on the edge of your seat throughout the entire contest, but if one of these mid-range plays goes the distance when we're expecting a finish, I think it could really open things up for us. And I'm I'm going to talk us through it. I'm going to bounce some ideas off of Jason's head because we might have to get super, super different in order to take down the tournament this week and not have a super chalky build.
Yeah, I want to see where ownership ultimately leads on some of these fights. Like, there's going to be underdogs I know people are going to go after. I mean, I think anytime we see him in this role, Christos Giagos is somebody that we always kind of look at because of, he is going to be a boom bust play. If Christos Giagos is going to go out there and get the win, likely going to be a finish in first or second round. But like, there's other fights that I want to see where the ownership lands at. Padilla and Nelson is another one. I think Kyle Nelson is somebody is going to be another underdog that people might lean to. I don't love the volume of Kyle Nelson. That's what kind of scares me. Then I look at, some of these 9,000 options. Where do they lined up? Like I look at like a Charlie Campbell stepping up on short nose to take this matchup against Alice Reyes, excuse me. Look at the Roman Kopylov. Where does his, I don't, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but Josh Fremd fought a month ago and he missed weight by 3 pounds. And now you're returning a month later. That just concerns me. That just kind of concerns me in terms of that. And then also, look, you got Raul at 9,600. You're going to want to get to him, but it's like, how do you get to him? And I'll bring up a conversation me and Pete had yesterday on the phone where, you've always talked about the game theory of, can you find somebody that may get a loss, but is 7,000, 69 and below, but they can get you enough points to where then you can really fill up the rest of your lineup with and still approach 600 plus points.
Yeah, exactly. I'm always going to say his name because it worked for me in a tournament and I did really well because I punted to Stephen Kozlov, who was super, super cheap on that slate. And, he had big moments against Cameron Simon, tons of takedowns, tons of ground control. It was a high paced fight. So the activity was there. Cameron Simon ended up winning in the second or third round, but it still led to Stephen Kozlov getting like 60 points in a loss or something ridiculous like that. And, 60 points, given his price tag, is tremendous value. And it allowed me to spend up to the absolute studs on the slate where, let's just call it what it is. If I could, I'm going to pick Raul Rosas and I'm going to pair it with Loopy Godinez, two massive takedown artist fighters. That have significant potential to break the slate. I just have to find who that big punt is this week. And that's the struggle because I can make a case for a couple people, but usually it's better than this. The fighters are big favors for a reason. I'm not the biggest Elise Reed fan, Terrence Mitchell, Marnik Man fan at all. Alex Reyes coming off a 6-year layoff. So I can't wait to see where we land on some of these fights.
Yeah, I did my other podcast here earlier this morning, and I used the line, "Friends don't let friends make bets on fighters who compete in Alaska FC."
Oh, absolutely, man. It's crazy. It is crazy, and it's the training partners, everything. It's just difficult to be set up for success when it's like that.
And this is a thing, and sometimes in terms of developing lineups, it can be good or bad to kind of have understanding of how the business side of mixed martial arts works. And look, there's no question the UFC wants to develop Raul. And to me, he has a manager that has a very good relationship with the UFC. Terrence taking this fight, as a replacement on short notice. This just feels like a showcase fight, but we'll get into that matchup a little bit later. But let's get right into the main event. Of course, it is the rematch. Alexa Grasso making her first title defense as she takes on Valentina Shevchenko. Shevchenko is a minus 175 betting favorite. Grasso is plus 150, and of course over at DraftKings. Valentina 8,500. Grasso is 7,700. And Pete, when you think about Shevchenko and you start to take a deep dive into the stats, we've really seen her utilize her grappling in her past several fights. I want to say in her last 4 fights, she's got at least 3 takedowns in all of those matchups. But the one thing I keep thinking about, and look, my pick is going to be Shevchenko in this one, even though I do want to get to the Grasso in multi-entry GPPs, is I keep thinking she's 35 years old. You're starting to hit the downside of your career at 35, especially when we're talking about the female side. So that to me is maybe the one concern I have is, are we starting to see the downside of Valentina Shevchenko's career?
Yeah, I'm going to have a build for, Valentina Shevchenko going out there and dismantling Alexa Grasso. And I'm also going to have a build for the new blood Alexa Grasso going out there and looking even better than she did in the previous fight, where she was, she probably won round 1, and then Shevchenko made some adjustments and started to land takedowns and have top control over Alexa Grasso, who just seemed to be out-muscled in that area, even though she is, pretty solid in the takedown defense department and the grappling department. The adjustments were significant for Shevchenko. And then on the feet, the only thing I hate about Shevchenko, and I have to tell you, is she's so patient. It's borderline hesitant. Like it's that fine line between being patient and being hesitant, where she got hit with some big shots when Alexa Grasso switched to southpaw, a big straight left hand, kind of hurt Valentina Shevchenko, and her eyes got wide a little bit, and it kind of threw her off her game. I think that Alexa Grasso clearly has fantastic hands and wasn't intimidated by the pressure, the footwork, the stance, anything of Shevchenko. Now, I think if you look at the stats, it's pretty clear that Shevchenko was winning the fight pretty handedly, had 4 of 6 takedowns, had 5.5 minutes of control time. Total strikes, she had 167 out of 228, whereas Alexa Grasso had 182 of 308, so landed more total strikes, but the significant strikes were in favor of Valentina Shevchenko of 87 of 145 and Alexa Grasso of 59 of 181. With all that being said, right, I actually think that Alexa Grasso can make things interesting if she can make Shevchenko work in the takedown defense department. We've seen Shevchenko look vulnerable ever since the Tyler Santos fight. Tyler Santos kind of put the blueprint out there, and I actually thought that Tyler Santos probably won that fight given the 8 minutes of control time. If you can put Shevchenko against the cage and mix in your takedowns, she's human. She can be beaten, and that goes all the way back to the Amanda Nunes fights. She's just so skilled in the striking department where she can mix in punches and kicks that a lot of people just fall apart when they face her. So I'm really torn. I do want to think that the mindset of Shevchenko going out there and just saying that, her life is incomplete without the belt, and she's really, really hungry. And I think a hungry Shevchenko could be similar to a hungry Amanda Nunes and the Juliana Pena. I do think the Pena fight was a complete fluke for Pena to win like that, and Alexa Grasso just capitalized on a mistake of Shevchenko throwing a spinning back kick. She spins way too much, and making her miss on a spinning back kick right into a back take was excellent preparation. If she doesn't do that, I think Valentina Shevchenko probably wins the fight. So I will be siding with Shevchenko. But the more I think about, where they are in their careers, we could really see Alexa Grasso just rise to the occasion and pick up another win. So on a week where I hate the underdogs and I'm so torn, I'm not against the idea of stacking.
Yeah, no, I understand that. You mentioned a great point of the underdogs this week are just not a lot intriguing there. Overall, on the prize pick side of the thing, the one that really sticks out to me is the takedown prop on Valentina Shevchenko. Right now, as we do the show here on Thursday, a little after 1 o'clock Eastern, it sets at 3.0. She has hit 3 in her last 5 fights. If you're going to play that one, you got to go more than 3. Especially if you think this thing is going to hit 4 rounds. It hits 4 rounds. I would imagine she probably gets at least 1 takedown a round. So I would like more. There was a significant strike prop out there at one point. It's no longer there. The fight time is 24 3/4. I can lean either way, honestly, on that one. And then the fantasy score 115.5. If you like Shevchenko to win this fight, I kind of like going more, especially if she's able to utilize the grappling in that one. But I do think there are some other spots on Prize Picks I like a little more this week. But to me, it's a priority fight no matter what. Now the co-main event, we got Kevin Holland taking on Della Maddalena. Della Maddalena is a minus 155 betting favorite, plus 130 for Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland is 7,900 on DK and 8,300 for Della Maddalena. Of course, as we do this show, no FanDuel salaries are out. Once those FanDuel salaries are out, we'll hop into our Discord channel and offer up our thoughts over there when it comes to the FanDuel side of the equation. And I'm watching the media scrums yesterday. Good Lord, there were some bad questions asked. Like they may. Kevin Holland's up there for like 15 minutes, Pete. They might have asked him 3 questions about Della Maddalena. I mean, good Lord. I'm sitting on my couch last night watching this stuff, Pete, and I'm like, are we just trying to find content that you can put on an Instagram reel as opposed to asking this guy? And the best part was when Kevin Holland fired back at the guy from MMA Junkie, when Kevin Holland basically says like, yeah, my goal is not titles. And the guy's like, why not? He goes, is your goal to win a UFC title? You want to talk about an awkward moment? And you know these awkward moments as a fighter. You could fire right back, but here's the one question, though. You got a massive reach advantage for Kevin Holland in this one of 8 inches.
Yeah. Can we just, I would like everybody to hit the like button for us. And in the comment section, tell Jason that he needs to start going to these UFC events and start becoming the real media, because that's what Jason used to do. That's how I met Jason years and years and years ago, back when he was doing Bellator. And I think that's what we need. We need some real journalists and media members out there asking the correct questions. And I don't know anybody else who's more deserving. But as far as this fight between Kevin Holland and Della Maddalena, you already know I'm picking my boy Della Maddalena. Now, there is a reach discrepancy 100% for Kevin Holland. Just crazy reach on Della Maddalena. Maddalena does have good head movement, and I always say head movement is the perfect way to get inside that reach. Having good sound defense is a good way to get inside that reach. Parry, block, roll, step inside, get closer, make it into a phone booth type of fight. And Della Maddalena clearly likes to do that. I do think that you can see he has high guard at sometimes. He will walk his opponents down, close the distance, really relies on hooks, but he's so dynamic and mixes attacks to the body really well. The pricing is very difficult to get away from. But hear me out. 7,900 Kevin Holland hasn't been knocked out. Della Maddalena, 8,300, hasn't been knocked out. Both these guys have struggled in the submission department. And clearly, I think people are going to be a little too aggressive with the Kevin Holland sub props. I think that, him clubbing and subbing Michael Chiesa is going to make a lot of people want to pick him. I think this is going to be a striker's delight for 15 minutes. We saw Kevin Holland get lit up by Stephen Thompson on the feet. Completely different stylistic matchup. Lots of karate. But, Stephen Thompson has some, excellent hands as well that come from funky angles. I think Della Maddalena's striking and skill set is much better than Santiago Ponzinibbio, who Kevin Holland was kind of not necessarily struggling with, but, not going out there and being as dominant as I thought he was going to be. He picked up a 3rd round KO and scored 81.69. If I'm going to think a finish happens, me personally, I think it's Della Maddalena ripping to the body and making Kevin Holland, stumble and hurting him to the head. But the more I think of this and the more I'm, looking at it from a construction standpoint, maybe I'm underestimating the ability for both of these guys to go 15 minutes. And if it goes 15 minutes, I don't think it's going to be optimal. Because Kevin Holland's it's a massive test for Della Maddalena, and it's a massive test for Kevin Holland. And I can't wait to watch it. But I have to fade something that's going to make me uncomfortable to build something with some of the best 9,000 options out there who have tremendous round 1 and takedown potential. So maybe I'll be a little underweight to this fight, which I'm expecting to have tremendous ownership. But the pick's going to be Della Maddalena for me.
You remember at the beginning of the show, I said there was a Prize Picks play that Pete kind of gave me that look of, you sure about that? You sure
Yeah.
about that? I like the more than 10 fight time minutes on Kevin Holland. It's actually one of my favorite plays over on Prize Picks this week. I think this thing is likely going to go 15 minutes. I mean, the way Jack Della Maddalena was talking yesterday, I did kind of little concern about how he's going to have this fight. Is he going to have a smart game plan? I mean, Pete, we talk about this all the time. We remember the last thing we saw out of fighter. And the last time we saw Jack Della Maddalena, we saw a poor fight IQ aspect in his fight against Basil Hafez. It's tough to get that thought out of my mindset here. I do wonder of what happens if this fight hits the ground in terms of, the grappling that Kevin Holland does have. We know that ability. But also I thought one of the interesting things Kevin Holland talked about yesterday that, of course, no one asked a follow-up question about was he's talking about being with a smaller team and a smaller core of guys. And Terrence McKinney is actually one of the guys who just recently joined the team down there. I think I would basically, that's what I put it. He took a dig at Malik Lewis, who was on Contender Series on Tuesday. It's like, Malik was coming. He was getting some good rounds, and then he stopped showing up, and we saw what happened on Tuesday. I was like, ooh.
Yikes.
Ooh. But, it's kind of that interesting thought process of being with a small group of guys or going to that mega gym where, there's 100 guys, 100 different fighters sitting in that gym. So I thought it was kind of interesting. But I definitely see where your thought process, but it's also like, man, like as I'm hand building lineups, and if I want to get to, say I'm building my lineup with just one 9,000 fighter and I'm getting somebody in the main event, then it's kind of like, but even though you do like Jack Della Maddalena, I hate to use your term against you. What do you say every week on this show? What do we supposed to prioritize?
Well, we're supposed to prioritize main event and co-main event underdogs. And I see exactly what Jason's thinking, especially when you see Jack Della Maddalena pulling guillotines like crazy. But I mean, like, outside of that, that was idiotic. Yeah, I don't know why he was doing that. But like, it led to Basil Hafez being on top a lot, which probably won him the fight in a lot of people's eyes. But like the damage and everything up until that point, it wasn't. He was getting out controlled, but it was more mistakes on his behalf. Which, if he makes those mistakes with Kevin Holland on the ground, if it ends there, I think he will get Darce choked or Anaconda choked. So, I'm just hoping it's a 15-minute kickboxing fight. Hell of a fight, but a bad DFS score.
Next up, we've got the return of Raul Rosas Jr. taking on Terrence Mitchell. Rojas is 9,600 on DK, 6,600 for Mitchell, and Rojas is now up to a 8-1 betting favorite, plus 550 for Mitchell. And Pete, like I've always said, friends don't let friends bet on Alaska FC fighters. And man, can you make a case for Terrence Mitchell? That's my question for you.
I mean, I think the case that you can make for him is that he's aggressive early. He reminds me a lot of Terrence McKinney in a way where, very, very aggressive. But when they start meeting resistance, whether they get out scrambled or they just have some levels of quit in them a little bit. I just don't like the preparation for people out of Alaska FC. I mean, not the best, strength of training partners out there, which I'm fine with smaller camps, no problem at all. That I've done both. I've been a part of huge camps. Jackson's, I've been a part of American Top Team. I've seen it all. But now I really do appreciate being a part of a small camp, my camp, other New England fighters. I really do like that. But I really think that Raul Rosas Jr. is just, they know what the UFC knows what they're doing. This kid is really good, very aggressive, and doesn't have any levels of quit in him. If Christian Rodriguez would have finished Raul Rosas, I think that, you could start to really poke holes at him. That was just a massive step up in competition. But I do think that as far as like throwing wild techniques on the feet into crazy takedowns and scrambling, we're seeing a round one submission finish for Raul Rosas Jr. And I love it. I really do. I'm going to try to build as many lineups with him as possible because I do think that, once Terrence Mitchell was reversed on the mat, you saw what Cameron Simon, did to him. I mean, he up until that he had one of two takedowns and a minute of control time, but Simon reversed position and started landing heavy ground and pound, and the positions were solidified. And if Cameron Simon solidifying grappling positions, Raul Rosas is doing so, but subbing you really quick. So Raul Rosas is an excellent fighter here at 9,600. Live to get that quick finish bonus as well.
Yeah, I was looking at best fight odds earlier this morning and looking at some of the prop bets on Raul in the first round. And, you're not getting – the only thing you're getting plus money on is him winning by TKO, KO, but I think the likely path is that he'll win by submission in the opening round. That's why over on Prize Picks, I think the less than 4 3/4 fight time minutes is the one that sticks out to me the most. His takedown prop is 1.5. He may only need one. I mean, I feel like if you're playing the significant strike prop on Raul, which is 12.5, or the takedown at 1.5, I just think you're going to sweat those ones out. I mean, this should be Raul's fight to win the first round, and and the question just ultimately is how close can he get to 125 points in a first round victory? Because look, when you talk about 9,600 and based on what the rest of your line may look like, that's probably what you're going to need out of him. Next up, we got Daniel Zellhuber taking on Christos Giagos. Giagos plus 205. Daniel is minus 250. He's 8,800 on DK, while Christos is 7,400. And if we sat there and you said, if you want to put a label on a boom bust fighter and it's not a heavyweight fighter, I feel like Christos Giagos would be one of those guys we point to as an ultimate boom bust type player.
Yeah, 100%. And I will tell you, if I have to pick an underdog this week, I'm kind of torn on this fight between Zellhuber and Christos Giagos. You have massive experience edge for Christos Giagos, who is 6-6 in the UFC. Daniel Zellhuber, 1-1 in the UFC. I know that we've seen Christos Giagos go out there and get finished pretty early. Round 1 submission to Gilbert Burns, round 2 submission to Charles Oliveira, round 1 KO to Arman Sarukian, round 1 submission to Thiago Moises. Every fighter I just mentioned is way better than Daniel Zellhuber. Daniel Zellhuber is, he's a long, rangy guy who knows how to manage distance well. Outstruck Trey Ogden, but was taken down once. That was a close fight. Defended 8 takedowns. Still ended up losing the decision. Lando Venata performance though, where he landed 78 of 207 significant strikes. Defended 3 takedowns. Had a knockdown. Had almost 2 minutes of control time. You saw what he can do out there. I'm not as impressed with Daniel Zellhuber as a lot of people, and because this week is so ugly, I actually do think that I'm going to be siding significantly with the Christos Giagos side from a construction and build standpoint. And I do think that rounding out his game, a part of Kopylov FC, we've seen how much better he's gotten. Like, he's picked up victories in the past by just having relentless pace. Like, he went the distance with Drakkar Klose and in a loss scored 56. And if I read these to you, I think it can make your eyes, light up a little bit. He went 5 of 15 in the takedown department against Carlton Minus, 2 of 5 against Drakkar Klose, 6 of 13 against Damir Hadjovic, 5 of 10 against Mizuto Hirota. I'll tell you what, like, we've seen Zellhuber have good takedown defense, but all we need is like a third of Christos Giagos' takedown attempts to land, and I think that he's going to do just fine at 7,400. So I am going to stand by Christos Giagos on a very ugly underdog week, and I'm going to say that he gets it done. But, buyer beware. Recognize that he does lose in the first rounds a lot, and he may end up just getting outpointed from the outside. But Kopylov FC is a hot gym right now. Sanford, Kopylov FC, very, very talented. They're always prepared in all areas of the game. So I'm going to be siding with Christos here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, Kopylov, about names that Jim has been through. Right. It was a Jocko, what was it? Jocko Hybrid Training Center. That was the initial one. Mm-hmm. Then it went to Black Zillions.
Yep.
What was after Black Zillions?
Forget. It was like Fight something.
I think this is like the 5th or 6th name that Jim has been on.
Combat Club or something like that.
Yeah, Combat Club. Yeah. It's been through a ton of changes. I mean, it's just
all I know is it's Henry Hoof's gym. So Henry Hoof and Greg Jones That's all you got to know
Yeah.
there, and all the studs that are a part of that camp.
Yeah, and over on Prize Picks, there's nothing I've highlighted as something. I mean, if you really wanted to play something, the one that would interest me more than the others is the less than 11.5 minute fight time on Zellhuber, just because I tend to think this fight's probably over within 10 minutes, but it's not a fight that I'm really trying to target there over on Prize Picks. Next up, we got Fernando Padilla taking on Kyle Nelson. Padilla minus 250 betting fair, plus 205 for Nelson. Padilla 8,900 on DK, 7,300 for Nelson. Nelson to me is another underdog that's kind of intriguing, but what concerns me about Nelson here, Pete, is the fact of the lack of volume that he does have. And this is kind of that range where I'm really looking at like from basically like 8,700 all the way to the top is like, who is the fighter that's just not getting enough ownership? And I do wonder if that is going to be Fernando this week.
Yeah, I think that Fernando is an interesting fighter. I mean, he made me look really smart against Julian Erosa, just based on his aggressiveness. He has submission skills in his back pocket as well. But the heavy strikes on the feet were pretty evident, and that's an impressive win over Julian Erosa, who's picked up big wins throughout his career and come back to the UFC countless times. So he's 1-0 in the UFC, whereas Kyle Nelson's 2-4-1, somewhat of a very ugly record, coming off a nice victory over Blake Bilder, where he landed 59 of 126 significant strikes, only attempted one takedown, 2 minutes of control. It was a very weird fight. Very, very weird fight. And I was pretty disappointed with Blake Bilder, who has both submission skills and, boxing, but it just didn't do much. The Duho Choi draw is interesting as well, because that's when Kyle Nelson went to the takedown route and went 5 of 10 in the takedown department against Duho Choi, who was at one point, a very, very hot prospect, had 5 minutes of control time. And, I wonder if Kyle Nelson's just going to be too strong for Fernando Padilla. I understand that he's going to be outgunned on the feet and live to getting knocked out. We've seen him go the distance with some other dangerous strikers, but I do worry about that chin ever since Billy Q kind of exposed it, and he was a sit and duck for a lot of the combinations. Fernando Padilla has, I believe it's 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu background as well. So, like, I think Kyle Nelson is just a strong guy and picking up some momentum, I guess. I guess like you can take some positives out of a draw with Duho Choi and then a first victory against Blake Bilder. So I'll get the Kyle Nelson somewhat, but I don't know, man. He's a guy that I just don't like backing, and he could end up doing enough in a loss if he goes the takedown route. But I think Padilla knocks him out, if I'm being honest. I think it's like a round 2 or round 3 knockout for Fernando Padilla, but I'll still have to increase my exposure to Kyle Nelson because there are multiple underdogs I want no part of. I want no part of Terrence Mitchell. I want no part of Elise Reed. I want no part of Daniel Lacerda. I want no part of Alex Reyes. So kind of showing my hand a little bit, but with these other underdogs that I'm left with, I'm going to have to increase exposure to them.
Yeah, no, I feel you there. I mean, that's why over on Prize Picks, I actually like the more than 7.5 fight time minutes on Fernando Padilla. Might sweat that one out a little bit, but this is a fight that I do kind of see going, later into the second, early into the third, if we do get a stoppage. But I don't. The only concern I have about Kyle Nelson as an underdog is simply just we don't see a lot of volume from him. That to me is what concerns me. Next up, we got a female matchup, which is going to be the featured prelim matchup. We got Loopy Godinez taking on Elise Reed. Godinez is a minus 440 betting favorite, plus 340 for Elise Reed. Loopy is 9,400 on DK, and Reed is 6,800. And I know one of our guys over in Discord kind of brought this up this morning is like, we all know the clear path to Loopy Godinez winning this fight, Pete. It's just a matter of there have been times where she has a superior wrestling advantage in a matchup, but she just doesn't use it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's an outlier, right? I guess the performance, the quick submission win over Silvana Gomez Juarez, scoring 127, and the 15-minute decision over Ariana Carnelossi, scoring 129, picking up 8 of 8 takedowns. I guess that's an outlier. I mean, because I don't know why she hasn't gone to the takedown well her past 3 fights as much as she should have. Went 1 of 3. in a catchweight bout against Angela Hill, 0 of 2 against Cynthia Calvillo, and 1 of 3 against Emily Ducote. Her takedown numbers were ridiculous before that. 2 of 15 against Luana Carolina, 5 of 12 against Loma Lukbunmi, and 8 of 8 against Ariana Carnelosi. And, in a first round finish when she fought Silvana Gomez Juarez, went 5 of 6 and picked up a submission win in round 1, scoring 127. So she has slate breaking potential. And that's why I really, really like Loopy Godinez. We know what Elise Reed is good at, and that's distance striking and just kind of winning boring decisions by being an accurate striker, not a volume striker, but an accurate striker. I just don't think that Loopy Godinez is going to allow that to happen. And if she does, she can get a takedown. If she goes out there and just really laced up her wrestling shoes, this will be a smash spot where she could really break the slate, get 120 plus easy all day long. I'm making plenty of lineups in hopes that she does so. But like, she can make things a little bit more difficult than it needs to be. And there's another 9,000 option that I'm just fully expecting to go out there and make quick work of his opponent, similar to Raul Rosas Jr. So with less work, may have a pretty comparable score. So I like Loopy Godinez to get over 95 fantasy points all day long. I just really, really hope that she's going to be able to break 100.
Yeah, I mean, she has that wrestling background. Her sister's an incredible amateur wrestler. And when you look at Elise Reed, she's been taken down at least once in every single one of her UFC fights. She's been taken down 3 or more times in 4 UFC matchups. So to me, it's a clear path. You got to imagine, if you are in the Loopy Godinez corner, this has got to be the mindset of like, our best path to victory, our easy path to victory, is just getting this fight to the ground. That's why on Prize Picks, I do like going more than 2.5 takedowns over on Loopy Godinez. I mean, look, if I'm looking at playing a 2-player card, my first 2-player card over on Prize Picks is probably going with the more takedown props on Loopy Godinez and on Valentina Shevchenko. And if I was going to add a third one, I'd probably go the less than 4 3/4 on Raul Rosas fight time there. But that is a clear path to victory here for Loopy Godinez. We'll see if that does take place. Next up, we got a matchup here. We got Josh Fremd taking his second fight just over a month as he takes on Roman Kopylov here. Kopylov is a minus 330 betting favorite, plus 260 for Fremd. Kopylov is 9,100 on DK. Fremd is 7,100. And the concerning part for me is Josh Fremd fought a month ago, missed weight by 3 pounds. He did get the win on that night, but now you're returning a month later. And this, Pete, that's concerning me. And I just wonder, if Kopylov is able to, let these strikes flow, how well will that chin hold up when you're talking about 2 weight cuts in basically a 33-day period?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot worse than that. I mean, I think that the weight miss could just be a miscalculation. I believe he spoke of it, saying it was something to do with his water loading and his salt intake. Just a slight miscalculation. You don't expect that, for a professional that's had numerous fights at a decently high regional promotion and into the UFC as well. So it happens, man. We've seen it happen all the time. This is an interesting matchup, though, against Roman Kopylov, who should be the better striker than the big frame Josh Fremd, who should be the better wrestler. I'm very intrigued with a 7,100 Josh Fremd, just because we've seen Roman Kopylov early on in his career struggle against Carl Roberson, who is a complete fraud, and lost in the 3rd round via submission. And then we've seen him get outworked and dominated on the mat against Albert Duraev, who we thought was like one of the next big things from a grappling perspective, looking like Khamzat Chimaev. But I'll tell you what, he's made adjustments. And within a year time, he went and he rebounded against Alessio Di Chirico, picking up a 3rd round knockout. And then in 2023, a knockout over Punahele Soriano and Claudio Ribeiro. So I really like those performances. He's defending some takedowns, 3 takedowns defended, 4 takedowns, 8 takedowns defended. And I don't think that Josh Fremd, despite being a massive fighter and having good straight punches, I don't think that he's going to be able to compete with Kopylov on the feet. I think Kopylov's just going to be able to throw kicks, chop away, hit him with some big blitzes. He's a blitzing fighter, and that straight left hand is like a piston. So if Fremd does not move his head, Fremd will get knocked out or hurt. But I really feel like Fremd in these interviews are saying, he's going to pick up a surprise knockout over Roman Kopylov. I feel like that's just all talk in hopes of Kopylov expecting no grappling. And I think that he's going to really, really look to body lock Roman Kopylov and win minutes and possibly pick up a submission win, because we know Josh Fremd has sneaky submissions. So the underdog, bottom of the barrel underdog pool for me, and this is as low as I'm going to go, is consisted of Kyle Nelson, Christos, Giagos, and Josh Fremd. I don't like anything else beneath them. And those are the three fighters, the three underdogs that I'm going to have the most exposure to. And I think that's probably going to be the chalkiest underdogs out there. But I think that it's deserved. I'm still picking Kopylov to win, but it all comes down to the game plan of Josh Fremd.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these ones where I expect that we're going to see a stoppage in this matchup. I do like the under 11-minute fight time over on Prize Picks on this one. I do think this one is over within 10 minutes or so we'll see what happens there. Next up, I really want to know who the manager of Daniel Lacerda is. The guy's lost 4 in a row and he's still in the UFC.
Yeah, man. I mean, how?
I mean, it's one of these things. As I'm doing some prep this week, I'm sitting there going, hold on. Typically, your entry level UFC contract is 4 fights. I mean, so it's one of these things of okay, maybe they're throwing Edgar a bone here. Maybe they're like, hey man, we're gonna give a little tune-up fight here. I mean, he's a big favorite. He's a minus 250 betting favorite to Lacerda plus 205. Edgar 8,700, 7,500 for Daniel, and this is always that price range that to me is always, I want to see where ownership is. Is it getting ownership? Is it not getting ownership? Because that's in terms of, when you're talking about, it doesn't matter how many lamps you're throwing in these big GPPs. That to me is where can I find some leverage?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I don't know how the hell Lacerda is still in the UFC. I mean, because back in the day, if you even lost one UFC fight, you kind of were a little nervous about getting cut. 2, most definitely you were nervous, and 3 in a row was unheard of. But 4 in a row, my goodness gracious. And Lacerda, we know what he is. Very, very dangerous in round 1. Hurts a lot of his opponents, but he gasses out. So he's very dangerous. He keeps his hands low, his chin somewhat high. He will get takedowns. He will be throwing crazy sprinting techniques like flying knees, anything that's going to zap his gas tank. He's just going to go out there and do. And then if he's met with any resistance in round 1, he can even get broken in round 1, late round 1. Same thing with round 2. So I think that you cannot trust him at all. And a guy in Edgar Chairez is going to be my most exposed 8,000 fighter just because of the untrustworthiness of Daniel Lacerda. How when he loses, he does get finished. And Edgar Chairez had a solid performance against Tatsuro Taira, was controlled against the mat, but ended up hurting Tatsuro Taira, knocking him down, reversing positions, attempting 2 deep submissions. I think that if he has anything similar to that with Daniel Lacerda, I think he finishes him really, really quickly. So 8,700, he might be my favorite finish on the card in the 8,000 range. And I'm going to be picking Edgar Chairez here. I get it if you want to go to Daniel Lacerda for his round 1 potential. And a lot of the underdogs do not have round 1 potential like Daniel Lacerda. But I think there's enough fight tape out there to recognize what Daniel Lacerda is. And he's had 4 opportunities to correct the mistakes and fix all the fight IQ and all of the pacing of his fights, and he just hasn't. So why am I going to trust him to do so in his 5th UFC fight? I'm not. I'm picking Edgar Chairez to finish Daniel Lacerda in round 1.
This is another fight that Pete gave me that look when I told him what I liked on Prize Picks. You sure about that? You sure about that? Okay, I know some people are going to call me crazy. Give me more than 5 fight time minutes on Daniel Lacerda. Call me crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
because here's the thing.
It's going to happen in the 2nd or 1st. It's just a matter of if those are going to be some crazy. I would just you're going to be sitting on the edge of your seat.
Oh yeah. This to me is okay, if you want to play a 5-player card on Prize Picks, this is the end of the card. This is that fifth prop you're putting in there. But it's one of these things also is he that wild man that we have seen in his 4 previous UFC fights where he's just going balls to the wall in that first round, and either he's going to get finished in the first round or he's going to get finished in that second round. I mean, look, at 5 minutes, I just need to get to the second round. I just need you to get to 5:01 mark, and it's a winner. But it's also the fact that if he's lost 4 in a row, it makes me wonder, could we see a more tentative fighting style from him, maybe trying to save his job in the UFC? We've seen it happen before, but more likely than not, we're probably going to get that wild man who's coming out here.
You know what's going to happen, Jason? Okay, and let's see if I put it out. I hope for your sake,
I already know what you're going to say. I'm pretty sure I have a good idea what you're going to say.
He's going to get beat from pillar to post in round 1. The round's going to end, and just before round 2 starts for you to win, they're going to call it right in the middle, right on the stool. They're just going to call it right then and there, and he's not going to.
If that happens, I'm texting you immediately with the middle finger emoji, going, "It's all your fault." First off, it'd have to be a doctor to stop the fight because no corner's going to call a fight.
I know. Yeah, it'll be a doctor stoppage, and you'll be 1 second off of walking away with a victorious card.
Look, if the fight was in Florida, there's no way a doctor would stop it. Did you not see Verdum's face last week?
True. Yeah, that was gross. The eyelid was split.
They own some good vitamins now. Outside of that, you saw a drug testing pool.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure they are.
I'm just saying. I mean, both of them are definitely in the weight room.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
and I'll tell people this, and I've shared some things with Pete. Game bred bare knuckle MMA. You want to know why fighters are going there? Because they pay really damn well.
Yeah, I don't blame them. I'm kind of torn on it. I just don't like it because of how much it's gonna cut people and like all the scar tissue, and then like you can only do bare knuckle boxing or bare knuckle MMA so much. Your hands, your face, like outside of that, you know what I mean? Like the gloves really just make it so much safer from just a longevity standpoint, from a career standpoint. But I don't know. I still don't like the idea of it.
Yeah, I mean, Verdum, like literally, if you go to Verdum's Instagram, it's his second. He actually has it pinned. This is kind of scary that he has it pinned to the top of his profile, and it's his left eye. Like Pete,
it's his eyelid.
Like, how does a doctor not stop that thing?
I have no idea.
That is the proof. A doctor in Florida will never. You literally would have no pulse for that doctor to stop the fight. Yeah, it's like Florida, Texas. No way that doctor's stopping the fight. No way.
It's nuts, man. It is absolutely nuts.
It also shows you in combat sports. We see it in boxing, but you're never going to see a corner throw in the towel.
I think more corners should. I totally would.
It's an extreme rarity. I mean, the one that sticks out to me is I remember right before he got knocked out by Josh Thompson, Nick Diaz threw in the towel on his brother. But
really?
Yeah. And literally, if you go back and watch, that was like one of the first UFC on Fox shows. Like right before Thompson throws a head kick, you see Nick throwing the towel in to stop the fight. And while it's not in the unified rules, and I've had this conversation with Mike Mazzulli plenty of times, that he says, while it's not in the rules, a doctor will honor if a corner throws in the towel in the middle of a round. It's kind of crazy that throwing in the towel is not in the unified rules.
None of this shit makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Dude, one of the judges scored the fight for Verdum. I don't know what the hell he was watching.
How?
I
watched that. How?
Dude. Like that's the point. Like I would want to be the executive director. Goes up to the judge, goes, "All right, are you colorblind?
Are you something? Are you an idiot? I think you are."
I mean, there's sometimes we see scores that you're just like, no way. Like, what fight were you watching? I mean, yeah, been there, done it, seen it. And we'll be here 20 years from now still talking about some bad judge's scorecard. It ain't going away. Let's move over to your favorite salary of the week. It's a female matchup. You got Cortez at 8,200 as a minus 125 betting favorite. Jasmine's at plus 105. She is 8,000. And to me, Pete, it's an interesting one. Tracy Cortez has not been the most active a fighter over the past couple of years. Jasmine is, to me, I think she's always kind of a fighter that, I seem to always go against her, but I think this is a good spot for her here.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like they're pretty similar in a way where they both like to get takedowns. They will strike enough. They like to get top control over their opponents. I think the split decision over Justine Kish for Tracy Cortez is not really the best. You don't like seeing that, throwing only 66 significant strikes against Melissa Gatto, but having 2 of 3 takedowns and nearly 8 minutes of control time is fine. I like what I'm seeing from Jasmine Jasudavicius against a much, much stronger Gabriela Fernandez. She went the takedown route, grabbed 4 of 8 takedowns, 11 minutes of control time. I like the volume for her in the striking department more than Tracy Cortez's striking, where she landed 67 of 158 significant strikes, went 1 of 1 in the takedown department, defended 3, had almost 8 minutes of control time. I think it's going to be a close fight. And I do think it's going to be a winner here is going to score within the 80s. But yeah, I think that I'm going to be leaning towards Jasmine Jasudavicius to pick up a decision win over Tracy Cortez, who outside of personal issues and all that stuff, just seems to be a solid fighter. But I think that a bigger, taller, rangier Jasmine Jasudavicius is one that it's somebody that I was pretty high on coming into the UFC, and then when a fighter of Natalia Silva put a real halt to that, and then it made you question, is Natalia that good or is Jasmine bad? Nope, Natalia's that good because we've seen what Jasmine has done since against Gabriela Fernandez and Miranda Maverick. Yeah, so 8,000, give me Jasmine Jasudavicius, slight underdog, 3-1 in the UFC. I'm okay with that.
And I kind of slightly kind of like the less than 1.5 takedown prop on Tracy Cortez, and that's more about to do by Jasmine. In her past couple of fights, especially against Miranda Maverick, and seeing what she was able to do there with stopping the takedowns. So to me, that's a little bit I like there. But Jasmine is actually one of the underdogs that I do like. I just don't know in terms of a ceiling if she's someone that could get in that optimal lineup. Next up, we got Alex Reyes taking on Charlie Campbell. Charlie Campbell stepped up here on short nose. He is a nearly 5-1 betting favorite. He's minus 480 plus 360 for Alex Reyes. Campbell 9,300 on DK, and for Reyes, he is 6,900. And obviously, this was supposed to be Natan Levy was going to be in this spot. That's who Charlie Campbell's replacing here. But to me, it's more about I'm just not big on Alex Reyes.
Yeah, I don't really know what to think other than that Alex Reyes is clearly the wild card on this fight card, where 6-year layoff coming in, having minimal experience in the UFC to begin with, just a fight against Mike Perry where he got knocked out in round 1. Now we get to see him 6 years later after overcoming so many surgeries and injuries. So at 155 pounds, I want to see him make weight, see how he looks. But also it's just like, it's tough to go in there against a guy who's been active and been acclimated to the fight game and has been picking up some good wins and had a spectacular performance on Dana White's Contender Series until he ran into a straight right hand, was very close to finishing that fight over Chris Duncan, and then ran into a straight right hand. He has good uppercuts. He has good, powerful punches. I'm expecting a first round or second round KO for Charlie Campbell. And he's the 9,000 option that I said, will make it look a lot easier than Loopy Godinez. And I think that he'll go out there and pick up a very similar or perhaps a better score than Loopy Godinez. But the one thing is that he won't go to the takedowns where Loopy will. And if Reed gets back to her feet or can't, that's when the takedowns and the scoring system is somewhat broken. So I think it's kind of like a number 1 fighter is Raul Rosas Jr. to get to, and then it's like a 2A, 2B between Loopy Godinez and Charlie Campbell. So I think DraftKings did a solid job at pricing him. I'm not going to get behind Alex Reyes. I could be wrong. He could go out there and match the aggressiveness of Charlie Campbell, get a takedown, possibly work towards a submission finish. But yeah, everything I'm seeing and everything I've seen is Charlie Campbell's going to go out there and hurt Alex Reyes.
Yeah, and then our first fight of the night is our second biggest betting favorite, as we've got a 7-1 betting favorite. Josefine taking on Man. Man is plus 500. She's 6,700 DK, and Josefine, she is 9,500. Pete. So you talk about the first two fights tonight. We got a 9,500 fighter, then a 9,300 fighter.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. The first fight or two of the night seem to be optimal fights to target, and I think that Josefine Knudsen is dynamic striker and clearly a very good kickboxer, and one who started to round out her game for MMA competition. And on the Contender Series not getting signed after a solid performance, I think that she was a little bothered by that, but clearly stayed ready and stayed in the good graces of the matchmakers, and they were impressed with her enough to bring her in here to the UFC. So I think that this matchup, she took a fight against Yasmin Lucindo, and Lucindo backs out. So now you have Marnik Mann, who was on the Contender Series and was head kicked and knocked out. You have her stepping up on short notice. So this is a Contender Series fight all over for her debut. She doesn't have to necessarily step up in competition to face off against Marnik Mann. It's pretty obvious what Marnik Mann is going to do. I was trying to look on social media and see if she's been active or anything. It seems like she's somewhat deactivated her social media, but back in the day, she used to post a lot about how much she loves takedowns and had highlights of all of her throws and takedowns and trips, and that's the type of punt play that we like to target. So I'm fully expecting Josefine Knudsen to go out there and destroy Marnik Mann on the feet, defend some takedowns. But, if you go back a couple years, you've seen Josefine Knudsen get taken down and controlled. And if Marnik Mann is in shape, which I don't necessarily know if she is, accepting this on short notice and having nothing on social media, you could have a massive, massive punt play here at 6,700, doing enough in a loss by getting tremendous amount of takedowns and control time en route to a loss, but it allows you to spend up to the other 9,000 studs. So I'm going to be taking Marnik Mann as just an absolute punt to do enough in a loss. But my full expectation is that Josefine Knudsen goes out there and 30-27s her. So, I think that the 9,500 price tag makes sense. Do I like the finishing upside of Knudsen? Not necessarily. I really like the finishing upside of Charlie Campbell, really like the finishing upside of Raul Rosas Jr., and the potential submission finish potential of Loopy Godinez, but we don't need Loopy's finish if she goes out there and wrestles. So Josefine, probably a fighter I'll be a little bit underweight to, and I'll just smash the absolute punt of Man at 6,700.
So let's get right into our straight up fight picks, non-DFS related. Main event, give me Valentina Shevchenko.
Oh, I'm so torn, Jason. I am so torn. I'm going to go Shevchenko.
Give me underdog number 1 and Kevin Holland.
Della Maddalena.
So I'm trying to keep track here of the ones that we're in a little bit of disagreement on, see where we go here. I'm sure we're going to be in total agreement here, Raul Rosas Jr.
Yep, Raul.
Yeah. Next up, we got Zellhuber and Giagos. DFS, I like Giagos, but I'm going to go Zellhuber.
I agree, but I'm still going to just take a shot on Christos here.
You're going to Christos as your straight up pick?
Yeah, I'm gonna. I think like I have to believe in that camp. So I'm gonna go with him.
I will go Fernando Padilla.
Padilla for me.
Give me Loopy Godinez.
Loopy Godinez.
I will go Kopylov.
Kopylov.
I'll go Edgar.
Chairez, yep.
Jasmine. Charlie
Campbell.
And Josefine. In terms of prize picks, I just kind of see a 6. This would be my crazy 6 player prop over at Prize Picks. But as I said, I really like to do 2 and 3 player cards. So more than 3 takedowns, Valentina Shevchenko, less than 1.5 takedowns on Cortez, more than 7.5 fight time minutes on Padilla, less than 11 fight time minutes on Kopylov, less than 4 3/4 fight time on Raul, and more than 10-minute fight time over there for Kevin Holland. And of course, if you hit all 6, that's times 25. So if you did that as a $20 entry, you would win $500. But that to me is, it's more, yeah, hitting 6 props is going 6 for 6 can be a very tough thing. That's why I'd rather go with, the 2 and 3 player props over there. Let's get some questions in here.
Did you realize that Shevchenko did her camp at Tiger Muay Thai?
I heard about that.
Ooh.
Best leverage plays. I have not seen ownership yet, so I'll kind of, once I kind of see ownership, I'll have a better idea that who will be the leverage plays. But my guess is going to be that maybe Lacerda may be a leverage play, but you just know you're playing with fire just because you know how his fighting style is. Best takedown upside, Shevchenko, Godinez. I mean, those are the 2 that really stick out to me.
Yeah.
In terms of getting 2, 3 plus takedowns.
Yeah, I might just take 1 for Rosas. Outside of that, I mean, a fighter that could is Josh Fremd, and I think he's going to have to if he wants to win that fight.
So we have 5 9,000 options. It was asked for us to rank the 9,000 options. If I was going to go number 1, I mean, Raul's the easy one there, but it's a roster construction situation, and maybe you get a quick bonus finish. I would put Raul number 1. Number 2, I would go. I will go Kopylov. 3, Godinez. 4, Campbell. 5, Josefine.
Oh, dang. I'm going 1, Rosas. 2, Campbell. 3, Loopy. 4, Kopylov. 5, Josefine.
Okay. So, I mean, we just have one little flip-flop there on that. Next question coming in here. It says, should we expect bias towards the Mexican fighters this weekend? It's UFC Noche, but it's in Vegas. I especially can't make up my mind on Jasmine and Cortez fight. I would not expect bias in terms of it. Now, the one thing is they will be fighting in front of fans. This is at T-Mobile. This is not at the UFC Apex. So, you'll have the bigger cage as opposed to the smaller cage. So that's something to kind of note there, but I would not expect any bias.
No, I don't think that's the way to evaluate a location. I don't think there's really, bias because it's all based on the commissions. I mean, there could be, but I think it's more crowd influences. Like when you have a heavy crowd behind, let's say an Irish fighter, and then that guy is landing shots, the crowd is oohing and eyeing, which is emphasizing everything that they're doing, which can lead to a judge valuing that a little bit more. That's not necessarily bias. That's just being in a live atmosphere. And if you haven't seen fights live, it's a completely different game than watching it on TV.
No doubt. By the way, did you see that apparently the cheapest ticket for UFC 295 is $900?
I told you, I was going to go to the O'Malley fight. I was going to go. And then I saw the tickets. And then, it's just, okay, I'll stay home. I don't know how many fights.
I have a feeling you might have had a hard time explaining that at the home.
Right, exactly.
Hey, by the way, I'm gonna go to Boston today. Oh, how much your tickets, Pete? You don't even know that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because I'm not sitting all the way up in the nosebleeds. I'm not going to do that. No. There's no way. I just would rather stay home.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were talking about today on our podcast. Like, if the ticket's going to cost you $900, could you imagine if you took that $900 and you just went on a night on a town? You can go to the nicest steakhouse and still not spend that kind of money.
No, you could throw the biggest house party ever and not probably touch 500.
Exactly. Next up, value plays underneath AK on DraftKings. So as I look at this, and this is, I would say, looking at from a GPP aspect. Lacerda, but boom bust there. I think you got to look at Josh Fremd in that way. Christos Giagos, I would look in that way. And then I think Grasso.
Yeah, I have 5, and it's the only 5 under 8,000 I'll be getting to. Kevin Holland, Grasso, Giagos, Nelson, Fremd. Not touching Lacerda, Reyes, Reed, Mann, or Mitchell.
Yeah. Next up, it was asking about a wrestling grappling skills comparison when we're talking about that female matchup between Jasmine and Tracy.
Yeah, it's a little tough, right? Like, I think they're both clearly wrestlers. One where Tracy Cortez is very reliant on, top position, whereas Jasmine Jasudavicius seems like she will scramble a little bit more and she'll defend a little bit better. I think that she's been put in worse positions than Tracy Cortez has. So I kind of like the Jasmine Jasudavicius well-rounded grappling. They both really aren't submission threats. It's more just control-oriented wrestling.
Get over some YouTube comments we had here. This one from Kevin. He says, outside of Lacerda and Grasso, not many dogs interest me this week. DK winning score could be a low one. I get that mindset, Kevin. I mean, but, I think in Pete, me and Pete were having this conversation right before the show. It's like, when you go into Cruncher and you're developing lineups, it's like, who are the 2 underdogs you had the most faith in? I mean, Grasso, I think, would be someone that we would lean on, but outside of that, it's like, it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough, and that's why I think it makes stacking viable. Stacking works sometimes, and in women's MMA, you tend to see decisions anyways. Now you got a 5-round rematch. I'm expecting it to go 25 minutes, and if it goes 25 minutes, if it's on the feet, I do expect Alexa Grasso to be a little bit more aggressive based on the confidence of beating Valentina Shevchenko, which could lead to just points galore. Even if, say, Valentina picks up the win and gets 100 plus and Grasso in a loss gets 80, I think that's enough, and it should be enough with a stack. The one thing I kind of just want to bring up real quick is Shevchenko's at Tiger Muay Thai, and we know that Tiger Muay Thai and the best parts of Tiger Muay Thai are now Bang Tao. And I'm looking at who she's sparring and training. I mean, for what she's putting on social media, it's a lot of strikers. It would probably have benefited her a little bit more to go to a wrestling or grappling oriented camp, considering that's how she lost. It's weird, right? If she keeps it on the feet and she defends takedowns, cool. But she might be met with more resistance against Alexa Grasso than she's anticipating.
Yeah. Next up, this comes from Anthony. Grasso or Nelson on DraftKings. I'd rather go Grasso, 5-round potential, and the fact that Nelson's just not a volume guy.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Spicoli's Bus says Chairez will get KO'd by ground and pound. His takedown defense is a guillotine, which is so ugly and bad. So he spends a lot of time on his back and makes no effort to get up. Look, this is the thing about Lacerda. He's a wild man. But the point I brought up is, could we see a more labored approach from him just because, clearly if he lost, his days in the UFC are over. Most guys don't even get this opportunity to lose 4 in a row and get a 5th fight in the UFC. And look, and he's probably a part of the reason he's got it is the fact that the UFC's like, you know what? We know this guy comes to fight.
Yeah, I think it's just because he's exciting, and it's a thank you to Chairez for stepping up against Tatsuro Taira and then having a good account of himself, knocking him down, having 2 close submissions. So I think they're kind of like, well, we were going to let this guy go. We know he brings it, and we want an exciting fight in front of the crowd. So, good for Lacerda, but, he needs to improve a lot if he wants to stick around.
Andrew asked about favorite captain on DK. The DK contest for captains are not out yet, so just kind of speculating a little bit here. Look, the main event becomes very intriguing in the captain role, especially if Shevchenko does go to that grappling well. That could be an absolute massive score. When you think about, obviously, Raul's going to be the most expensive captain out there. I can see why you would get to Godinez, just because of her ability to score the fight to the ground. I mean, look, in the captain spot, Shevchenko and Grasso are going to be the chalk. So I could definitely see that, depending on the size of the contest that you're getting in, where maybe you try to get somewhere else and getting to someone else that might be able to outscore. But if Shevchenko or Grasso wins a 5-round decision, that could be a massive score in the captain spot.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see if Chairez is a part of it. I think that Chairez is a great contrarian captain. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that just if it's not Chairez, it would have to be main event fighter for me.
And I will tell you this right now, as FanDuel has, let me see there, if they've posted contest. Let me look at the old salaries here. So Raul Rojas, $23. Josefine, $22. Loopy, $21. Valentina, $20. Campbell, $20. Kopylov, $19. Zellhuber, $18. Grasso, $17. Padilla, $17. Della, Maddalena, $16. Chairez, $16. Cortez, $15. Jasmine, $15. Kevin, $14. Nelson, 14, Lacerda, 13, Giagos, 12. That's probably going to be the people that are going to turn to over on the FanDuel side. Fremd, 11, Reyes, 11, Reed, 10, Man, 9, and Mitchell, 8. I mean, looking at underdogs over on the FanDuel side of the equation, I think you're looking in that Fremd, Giagos, Lacerda, 11, 12, and 13. I think you're probably, if you're looking to save a little bit of money, that's probably where you're looking at over there on FanDuel. But obviously Raul is easier to get to in the FanDuel scenario than he is on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'm probably going with I'm probably going to stick with Giagos there. What's Jasmine's?
She was 15, I want to say. She was 15, yeah.
Yeah, see, I don't like I mean, I don't mind the Jasmine Giagos build. I like that. I think that's fine, and then it can get you the high priced options all day long.
Scott's asking about we spent a couple minutes and hand building a lineup. So when I'm hand building a lineup, it's for the most part it's always okay. Who am I starting a hand build with? And for me this week, as I look at that, it goes, who am I taking in the main event? I just think it's a hard fight to get away from. I just prefer the upside of Valentina, especially if she does go the takedown route. Just kind of my concern is Valentina was winning the fight the first time. She was up 2-1, no question about it. As long as maybe part of the mindset was of getting away from the spinning attacks, because that's ultimately what did her in. But then after you start with the main event, okay, I mean, like if you put Valentina Shevchenko in, now I've got 8,300 remaining per player. So then my mindset is, all right, I got to start searching underneath 8,000, and I think I'd probably start with Giagos. I think that would probably be the guy I would search at, starting there, just to kind of give me a little bit of salary relief. Then at that point, if you go Giagos and Shevchenko, now you got 8,500 per player to deal with. And this is where I think at this point, when you're hand building a lineup, do you do the Pete philosophy of, do I go to someone like a Man at 6,700? Can she get me 40, 50 points in a loss? If she can, now roster construction became very easy.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I mean, at that point, if you go with those three, now you're at 9,100.
Yeah, if I'm going to pay attention to the weigh-ins, and if you're not a part of our Discord, it's free to join. Click the link in the description below. If we see weigh-ins and she looks like she's in phenomenal shape, then there goes some concerns about her not being in shape. I mean, she's stepping up on short notice, and I know that she can land takedowns against Josefine Knudsen here. So it's going to be dependent on how she looks at weigh-ins, and certainly things could change from now till weigh-ins. Somebody could look terrible, and if somebody looks terrible, that's when it opens up an underdog, where previous to that, if you were just, making a lineup today, you wouldn't know that. But we have to see how the weigh-ins look and all that, see if a fight gets scratched, and then we'll take it from there. But make sure you guys tune into the Discord channel.
Yeah, I mean, if you do put man in your lineup, there definitely is a path to getting two 9,000 fighters in your lineup. That does include Raul Rosas Jr., who, I mean, look, if you tell me we have a quick finish bonus this week, Raul to me is the guy. We had a quick finish bonus last week. He got it at the 59-second mark. I remember I was sitting in my hotel, and I was just like, oh, please, timekeeper. Please, timekeeper. Do not screw me here. Do not screw me, timekeeper. I go, this fight was undone in under 60 seconds.
Who was it?
It was one of the early fights of the night. Let me go back to my recent contest. That was that Gabriel Miranda? Yeah, Miranda against Shane Young. After Shane Young missed weight.
Yeah, exactly. Point right there. And if you guys supported the channel by getting the Fight HQ shirts and hoodies, thank you so much. More will be coming in the future, and I'm sure we'll be getting hats and all that stuff too. So if you guys enjoyed the show, please hit the like button for us, subscribe to the channel, help us get to 1,000 subscribers. We're on our way, and we really appreciate everybody tuning in always to our breakdowns. It's a lot of fun.
And to bring up a point you brought up a little earlier, last week, 2 of the top 3 scores on the fight card were in the first and second fight of the night.
Exactly. It's volatility. That's why Jason used to, skip over it all the time. And then when you start playing tournaments more, it's just like, all right, well, now you got to get to it. And, volatile, low level from all cards. Mm-hmm. That's how it is. First fight of the night, kick the cards off, get them done, get them out of there.
Yeah, and I want to see where ownership is and where I could potentially get some leverage as time goes on. But of course, as always, like Pete said, we mentioned everyone checking out the show, whether you watch us on YouTube or you check us out over the podcasting platforms. We truly do appreciate that. Of course, if you're not in our Score channel, totally free to join. Great conversation we have there. Also, we got the DraftKings contest. Be sure to light up in that. That's a $10 entry fee. Top 3 play out there. It's always a great contest over there on DraftKings. Of course, we're here every Thursday for the most part. Sometimes based on maybe me or Pete's schedule that we can't do a Thursday, but for the most part, we will be here on Thursdays, 1 o'clock Eastern Time live right here on the Fight HQ YouTube channel. So as always, we appreciate everyone tuning in, and we will talk to you next week right here on the Fight HQ podcast.